Before we start silk screening, it's important that you know how to get set up to avoid giant mess and giant mistakes. So what I'm showing you here are my Fairlawn sweatpants that have paint all over them. Oh, I'll just do it this way. Paint all over them. These are my painting pants. I'm not wearing them today because I actually have a smock on. You shouldn't get paint all over you, but just in case, maybe today you want to wear something that if you get ink on it, you're not going to be upset because what we're working with in this cup, whatever color you may have, is fabric ink. It's meant to not come out of fabric because you're screen printing usually on fabric. So if you have a smock, wear it. If you have an old shirt and you don't care that you get ink on it, wear that today. The other thing too is in your kit, I think most of you, I put newspaper in there if you didn't have it. Notice my workspace here is covered in newspaper so that if I get ink on the table, it will wipe off if you get ink on the table, but it's just a lot easier in terms of cleaning up to just crumple everything and throw it in the garbage when you're done. The last thing too is I have a roll of paper towels here and a sponge with a cup of water. That's more for cleaning up your screen in case you want to reprint it later. You now have a permanent silk screen that has a mask. And again, I know our pet is just a test print. I'm not grading this. This is just to understand the process. But maybe you love it so much, which I do. I'm actually going to not just print it on paper for a test print, but I'm also going to print it on shirts because my daughters love my dog. And just to show you really quickly how to do that, this is an old t-shirt that I had in my drawer that I don't really wear anymore because it's starting to get dingy. And inside is a piece of cardboard. Now you're going to need this when you do your final design because you are going to print on some kind of fabric that I'm going to grade later. So you don't have to do this part for the test print, but I'm just showing you, I'm putting the cardboard that all of you have in your kit inside the shirt, at least horizontally so it stretches out the shirt a little bit. I know I want to print my design on the middle of the shirt. If you wanted to do the top right shirt later, you might want to adjust this and move it, but because I want it centered, I'm going to center my shirt in here. And then on the back, if you have a binder clip or masking tape or duct tape is even better. I have this like Pittsburgh Steelers duct tape that I'm going to use because I can just do this. Now you don't necessarily, again, for this test print, you don't need this, and I'll review this when you go to do your good print, but what I'm doing is I'm pulling these sleeves tight, and especially if you're printing on like a men's shirt where it's large, this is a women's extra small, so it's pretty small. So I'm just pulling this tight so that when I print it later, it's not going to get all wrinkly, and I won't get, I just want it to be nice and smooth. I'm also, just to show you, I'm curious to see how this one's going to turn out, doing a ribbed tank top, because sometimes when you have texture on a shirt, it's also going to affect the way it prints. So we'll see. Again, this is sort of a test screen print, so whatever happens, happens. Let's take it from here. So in your kit, you have what we're going to call a squeegee. It's this little piece of cardboard. You also have a bigger one here if you're afraid maybe you have long nails and you don't want to get ink under your nails. You could use the end of this, maybe get scissors and cut it a little bit so it's a little bit bigger piece. I'm just going to use this for the sake of the demo, and you'll see how in a minute. You've got your ink. Some of you have blue, red, green. There's different colors. I have black for today. Actually, for this demo, I'm going to use brown because I want to save this for another demo. And inside your Ziploc bag is a popsicle stick. That's just to scoop out the ink. So this is really all I need. Just pretend that this is that ink. I'm doing a test print on computer paper. You can test print on any paper. If you have a shirt that you'd like to do a test print on just to practice, maybe it's an old shirt, go ahead and get that set up. And I'm going to get started. So first thing, my glue has dried for my silk screen, and you can see, I don't know, like maybe from the side a little bit better, you can see that the glue is masking out the background nice and solid and all the dark areas from my original design. Now, this is the side that I glued on, so this is the raised surface. When I flip it upside down, this is where the fabric is, and there's like a little bit of a well. This is the side I want to print on. I'm going to lay this down, and I'm going to put this on the right side of my paper because actually for you also put it on the right side. Notice my paper's horizontal. Print this on the right side because we may use this later for our book cover design if you like it. If not, it's just a good print. Let me just clear off my space. Okay, so open up your ink. In this case, it's this, right, for you. Take your stick. This is laying flat. on the paper, and you're just going to scoop out as much of the ink as you can. And I'm not going to put it in the areas of the design. I'm going to put it off to the side because I don't want it to affect my design. So now my squeegee, I'm going to press really hard, not so hard that it's going to move the nylon, because this is nylon, it can move, but hard enough that the ink is going to go through the positive space, the areas that I did not glue. So I still have ink here. I'm going to run it in a, I'm just making sure the ink is going over my design. Now, I'm going to do this maybe one more time. What you don't want to do, and students always do this in the classroom, you don't want to just keep going back and forth and back and forth, and you're not painting it. You're just trying to make sure that the ink has run through your design and you've pressed it hard enough that it's gone through. And now with this excess ink, I'm going to scrape it on the edge, because remember, you're going to need this ink when you do your good design later that will be graded. This is just a test print. So again, the beauty of having newspaper down is I can just lay that there and it doesn't matter. Now I'm going to hold onto the paper because the paper is going to stick to my screen. As I lift this, I'm going to lift this to the side. Hopefully you can see it a little bit. Oh, no, I'm just going to lift it this way. Sorry. Sideways. Voila. You can now see my design has inked through the space that I didn't put the glue. So now very carefully, because I want to save this test print because I might do something with it later, I'm just going to put this somewhere in my room that I know it's my dog's not going to step on it and get ink all over the place. Now you're done. I'll show you how to clean up. However, if you are screen printing on a shirt, let's do this on my piece of cardboard. I don't want to get ink on it from there. Let's see if Cayenne is on the middle of my shirt. And again, as much ink as I can get in there. And this time, because I know I'm going to do 2 shirts, I'll just leave the ink on here rather than scrape it for my next print. So again, carefully. Now it's a little bit harder for me to know where I've already inked because my silkscreen has the brown ink in it. So I'm just going to kind of go all the way around and make sure you scoop up all that excess. Now, this time, I'm just going to lay this gently on top because I want to keep that ink for my next print. Now when I lift this, ooh, now see this here? These are the kind of mistakes I don't want to see on your final project when we do it later. And what happened was I didn't put glue in that part of the screen, and this time I got ink there, which is why it transferred on my shirt. If you do get that on your final project, think about later when this is dry, happy accidents, what can I do? Maybe I'll do a new screen that has a circle around it, and I'll just silk screen a circle around it over that, for example. Again, I'm going to move this carefully. This I can, instead of laying this face down, I'm going to lay it face up so I can move this out of the way. And let's try this last one. I'm really curious to see, and see now there's ink on that from my screen, so I can just fold that and throw that away. The goal is to avoid getting ink all over the place. So here we go. Now this one I have a book in there, and I didn't tape the back because the shirt is small enough that I feel like it's nice and a little bit taut. So again, let me center this. Okay. This time, I know from experience, I need to add a little extra pressure to get the ink in the grooves of that fabric. I'm going to try to avoid getting ink there, but there might still be ink on that side from the last print. So let's see what happens. Okay, now this is my last print, so I'm going to save my ink by scraping it in there. Do that, and let's lift this and see. So the cool thing is I now have this silk screen that if I love it so much, I can reuse it later. I'm going to let these dry, and what I can do now I need to clean up. So assuming I'm saving this design, I'm going to squeeze out the excess water in my sponge. And again, I have extra paper here. This, for the cleanup, this is where you might want some paper towels because you're going to get ink on this. I use computer paper for everything, just that's kind of my garbage paper. Now I'm going to put this face down. If you're near the kitchen, not the kitchen, the bathroom, if you have a bathtub, I would suggest doing this in the bathtub instead of a sink if you'd rather run water over this to clean it. Again, making sure you get all the ink off the sides of your sink or your tub. But this will work as well. I'm just going to wipe inside the sponge, or sorry, wipe inside my screen enough to get that cleaned off. Now, if you hate your design, you know you're not going to use it again, you can just let it dry, and then when we do the good design, because you're going to reuse this embroidery ring, let me just get another paper towel. So I got that with a wet sponge or damp sponge. Now I'm going to wipe it with a dry sponge. Okay. So you can see how that, cleaned up on there. And now you can see it's not clogged in there. So I can use this again later to print from if I want. If you don't want, what you're going to do, actually, I'll show you that later because we're going to recycle these embroidery rings anyway. But make sure you clean up your table when you're done. Wash your hands. Notice I have some ink on my hands, so make sure you're clean before you start touching things like your computer. And that's it.